My name's Eli Delaney, and I have the honor of meeting some pretty cool people. These are the entrepreneurs, the artists, the creatives, the game changers that are making a positive impact in the people that they meet. And I'm a firm believer that the people that you meet can get you anywhere you want to go. And this show is my way of sharing them with you. It's my way of also helping you meet cool people. All right, welcome back, everybody. Eli here, and today I have my friend Carl Richards. He and I have gotten to know each other really well over the last 3, 4, maybe even 5 months now. We got introduced from Success Champions. We actually co-lead the Success Champions podcast meetup group. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about him, and then I'm going to bring him in. A little bit of history. First off, he has more than 25 years experience behind the microphone on radio and on stage. That radio, that real thing that we actually had across the airwaves. He's also a 3 times best-selling author, international speaker, a TEDx speaker, an MC, and of course, a podcast host. He is the founder and CEO of Podcast Solutions Made Simple, who helps elevate clients with their credibility, launching a world-class podcast. So, Carl, thanks for coming and hanging out, my friend.
Thanks for having me, Eli. That was quite an introduction. Wow. And it has been about 4, 6, 8. I don't know. I'll lose track of how many months we've actually been together doing this thing. We're just having fun. We're just like loving the journey.
Oh, yeah. Well, and so we've been doing the podcast meetup group through Success Champions. I think this will be like our 4th month or something like that. 4th or 5th. We launched it like October-ish of this last year, right around there.
Sure, we'll go with that.
Yeah, something like that. But we were chatting for a couple months before that and getting to know each other. We hit it off like immediately, like the first time that we started talking, which was awesome. And you are. It's fun because you're an old school podcast dude. You've been around for ages with it, which is great. And it's not because I'm calling you old. It's because of the fact that you and I both have some history in that aspect of both of us starting podcasts early on in the game, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think you started podcasting before I did. Not making you sound older, but I think your journey started before mine. Full disclosure, podcasting's only been around for what, 23 years, something like that. The early 2000s was when it started to rear its head, and people would sit up and take notice of it. But it's amazing how back then, I mean, it was so innovative, and it's still innovating as we go through the journey today with where podcasting is going. But I'll tell you, those years in radio made a difference getting into the podcasting space, because and I've heard people, and maybe you've heard this too, Eli, is that podcasting is kind of like what radio used to be.
Yeah.
Right. You can have fun with radio. You can have fun with podcasting. You can be informed by radio. You can be informed by podcasting. You can listen to shows about sports, shows about news, there's all kinds of different things out there. Where do you want to fit into that niche, or where do you want to fit into the whole thing, I guess, is really what I like about it is. And when we're working with clients, that's what we do, is we help them on the strategy to figure out where do you want to take this thing.
Right. So how did you get into podcasting? Like, what was your segue into it? Because I know you have background as a speaker and even a speaker trainer from that standpoint as well. So tell me, what was it that got you started? And podcasting, this is kind of a cool thing.
I'll tell you the first time I heard the word podcast, I remember saying, and this is after a colleague had explained to me, I guess about a year after I was doing this part-time speaker training thing, I had a colleague who said, you're doing speaker training, you should start a podcast. And I remember saying, what's a podcast? And even after they explained it, I was like, okay, so you've got this thing that's kind of like radio, and I'm helping people get on physical stages, but you now want me to get them on virtual things? And it didn't make sense to me. So I said, not for me. And it wasn't until 2017, I was at an event in Toronto, and the keynote speaker, the main stage presenter in this 10,000 seat venue was Tony Robbins, but they had breakout rooms as well where you could go and listen to other thought leaders. And one of the guys I talked to, very early adopter into podcasting, his name's Sam Crowley. He was doing a full 90-minute session on, hey, you should have a podcast. Here's how easy it is to get it up and running. And I thought, oh, okay, that's what podcasting is. I started to get these ideas together of how this will impact my business as a speaker trainer. I can put my expertise out there. I can use this platform just like I would any platform, like a stage, to help people get information about how they can be better at speaking. I thought that's all I needed. Except I made a couple mistakes along the way. I didn't know what a hosting site was. I didn't know you could be on more than one platform. I had a colleague who said, "Oh, which platform are you going to be on?" And this is when Stitcher, there's another one. It's escaped me. Anyway, Stitcher, Apple. I don't even know if Spotify was a big player yet.
Back then, no.
But anyways, I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go on Apple because that's the one to be on, not knowing that you can get on multiple platforms. Who knew? So I made a lot of mistakes, and it was from there that I realized that, okay, yeah, I could probably not only have some fun with this myself, but share this with other people. But that's kind of where it started, was that
Nice.
2012-ish. Took me 7 years to finally launch my show. And I remember at that moment when I was launching going, why don't more people know about this? And then I remember thinking, I didn't know about it. So best way to have people know about it is to spread the word. So I started spreading the word.
Nice. I love it. It's so funny because those kind of stories, and the funny, I don't know. I recognize the name Sam Crowley. I know when you said that, I was like, wait a minute, I recognize that name, but I don't know him well. So I'll have to go back and we'll have to talk about that, who he is a bit. Cause I'm like, when I hear those kind of names, I'm like, wait a minute, I know that name. How do I know that? But it's so funny because like you're going through the time frame, and when I first learned about podcasts, I think it looks like we were probably closer to the same time frame, because technically my first show was a video. It was basically a what do we call it right back then? An internet TV show, which we did back in 2010 using Ustream. But then the first podcast, which was Driving Your Market, or an iPod. Back in the day, we had the iPods, those little bricks that are the size of our phones now, that used to, the big selling point, put 1,000 pieces of music in your pocket. And that's what they were back then. And nowadays it's like a lot of people don't even realize what an iPod is. They don't know that they even existed back in the day.
It's so true. And they didn't realize that the term podcast came from the iPod. I have clients who, when we launched their podcast, the original conversations were, so this goes on YouTube, right? Like, goes in, that's one of the places it goes.
Yeah.
But not realizing that, it can go on other places, and not knowing what a hosting site was, just like same as me. I didn't know what a hosting site was. And there's definitely an education. And I think that the lines have even been blurred a little bit more because there are so many options out there. And let's face it, YouTube is just a behemoth of a directory of files. A lot of people think that that's the only place you need to have a podcast, or you should have a podcast. You and I were chatting just before we started recording that there are shows that I've been on recently that are audio only still, not even leveraging video as a piece of their marketing content for their show. So there's many different ways to look at this podcasting space.
Now, I love that. Let's dive into that a little bit, because everybody thinks that it has to be this fancy production, and you have two sides of the puzzle, really. You've got the people that think it has to be massive fancy production, then they need a space like a studio with all the fancy mics and super cushy couches and all that kind of stuff, which is cool. I've done that, and it's a lot of fun. But then there's also, how do you do something that, like what we're both doing it from our offices. Now, I have the green screen set up, but that's just because I have a boring brown kind of tan wall behind me. And I was like, no, we're not going to do that. That's just not going to fly for me. Plus, I'm the purple guy. Got to have a purple background. But, there's so much in between. So let's talk about number one is what works. What is it that you think is, what's the difference between the two? Because some people think they have to go all in and then never get the thing launched because they have to invest, $5,000 into getting started. Or the person who says, oh, well, I have a computer and Zoom, I can have a podcast, which we really need to step up our game on that too. So I'd love it if you would, as the podcast production guy, I would like for you to kind of put in some of your thoughts and processes on the differences of that.
Well, of course, I'm going to say you should go all in with full production because, hey, that's what I do. But to be quite honest, I mean, if you're at the starting gate, especially if you're a solopreneur and you want to get into the podcasting space, do you have $100 that you can go buy yourself a decent microphone? Doesn't have to be a Yeti. Doesn't have to be the I don't even know what kind of mic you're using, to be quite honest. But it doesn't have to be a fancy schmancy microphone. Do you have something that you can at least level up your game with a USB microphone that you can plug into your computer? Can you download some free software? I know StreamYard has a free version of their platform. Zoom is great to a point, right? You're right. We should probably be getting away from Zoom, but can you spend $100 just to get going? Even if you don't have any money, that's fine. But right. Can you invest a couple of bucks to get yourself going? You know, the fancy studios and stuff. Yeah, you can do that. If your business, because a lot of people are doing this for business, right? They want to elevate their brand, their business, their credibility. If you have the budget to do that, by all means, do it. But for the average person, if you're not making, $250,000 to $500,000, you're not going to be spending, a ton of money on podcast production. So understand that you can do it on a budget. You can do it with an inexpensive microphone. You could probably purchase from Amazon. My first microphone was a Samson. Don't even ask me the model. It was very basic and rudimentary. I sat it on it sits very low on the table. So I sat it on some books. That's what I had to do with my first podcast microphone. So I could have it close enough to my face. But that's all you need to get started. The biggest thing is ask yourself as you're getting started, what's your why? Why are you even beginning this podcast? Is it just to have some fun? Is it because that'll help you figure out the investment piece along the way, and not to talk about an investment of it a lot, but just to understand that if you are putting this out and you want it to be a reflection of your brand, your business, your credibility, you might want to use signage like what Eli has. I usually do have a virtual background that I use. Unfortunately, it wouldn't upload here, but you don't need it. If you have a nice background with my shelf or bookcase maybe isn't the greatest, but if you've got a shelf with some pictures or some books or something that you've done or your logo, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. You can do it quite simply. And if you don't want to invest in that, I know there are places that rent studios I'm in Canada, across Canada and the US, that can do it fairly efficiently as well, for some as low as $25 for the day. Wow. You can create a lot of content in a day with $25. So again, what's the why? What are you hoping to accomplish? And then see where this can take you. It doesn't have to be a massively produced show. There are shows out there that basically operate on zero budget, really. And there are shows out there where it's $100,000 per episode.
Right.
Where do you fit into that? Not you, Eli. I know where you fit into that.
I'm on the cheap side. I do this because it's fun.
I thought you were doing it because it was closer to $100,000. That's what I thought. No? Okay. Wrong person. Sorry, I must be confusing you with somebody else. But
you're confusing me with a professional or something.
Well, and again, that's the thing, right? Like if you're a multi-million-dollar corporation, you're probably not going to want to cheap out on production.
Right.
But if you're a solopreneur, if you're like Eli, and I'm not saying like Eli, but if you're a guy that's doing this on a budget, and the other thing too is, are you prepared to do the back end work? Yes, there are tools that can help us do that. A lot of great tools. Eli, you and I can talk about that till the cows come home. But are you prepared to do that back end work? Because if not, you might need to get some help with that. So think about that. Do you have the time? Do you have the technical skills? Do you have the it's not even so much technical skills now, but do you have the time to learn how to use certain softwares that'll help you get your product out to market? Really. So think about that as you're getting set to launch your show.
Yeah, and I think, let's go back a little bit. I'm gonna talk about the mic thing for just a second because the mic is the most important part. Even if you're doing a video podcast, your mic is the most important thing.
Ding, ding,
But
ding, ding. Do you think?
yeah, and you did ask. I am using a Yeti. I got the Yeti several years ago. I actually have something I want to upgrade to, but for the meantime, this thing still works great.
Mhm.
And I think the Samsung that you're probably talking about is the one that I actually recommend for people that are just starting out. It's under $100 US. I mean, it's
Yeah,
not. I mean, it's like
it's
$80 and it comes with a stand and everything, right?
yeah,
It's
the
like,
legs flip down. It sits. Yeah,
mhm,
it's
yeah,
an awesome microphone. I love it. It's just
yeah,
it's not as effective right now for me. So but
mhm,
again, you don't have to spend $11 billion. That's an actual
right,
number. Uh, Getting your show up and running, and I think that's one of the people get stuck up here with. I got to spend a lot of money on microphones. You need a good microphone. And when I say good, good doesn't mean you need to break the bank
right,
or, donate a kidney to get the money to buy a microphone, right?
yeah.
The Yeti is perfect. There are other ones too that'll help you get started. If a Yeti is ideal in Canadian dollars, but Yeti's probably what, 80 to $100
Little over
US.
100 US.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it's right around there. I got mine on sale. That's one reason why I bought it was because it was like a Black Friday sale or something off of
me
Amazon.
too.
So I got it for $100 at that point. I think normally they're a little bit more like 120-ish maybe.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about it is you don't have to go like that. Like the mic that I want is I think 300,
Hmm.
and at some point I'll upgrade to that one because I know it's going to be leveling up my stuff. But, for the first, at first it was a Samsung Meteorite,
That's it.
which is a great one, except for it is omnidirectional. And
Yep.
so it picked up everything, like every glitch. Somebody stepped on a piece of wood outside, it would pick that up. Right.
Somebody stepped on a feather. It
Yeah,
could be heard through that
exactly.
microphone.
So immediately that was my big thing is like, okay, I gotta upgrade this because
Yeah.
it's great for
Yeah.
travel. Like if I happen to be traveling, I take that one with me because it's better
Hmm.
than the built-in mic. And I'd
Oof.
always tell people, if you're going to be either you're going to be a guest or a host for your podcast, don't use your mic with your headphones. Don't use your built-in microphone because those are just
Mhm.
garbage. It doesn't matter what
Yeah.
what computer you have. Get a respectable mic, and it doesn't have to be the expensive one.
No, I used to use these the occasional time for my.
Hmm.
I guess
Your iPod.
you're familiar with the brand, judging by what
Yes.
I'm putting here. And I thought, you know what, these are pretty good. They sound good. And then I realized in playing back some of the recordings, oh my goodness, I don't
They
even
do.
use it for calls anymore
Right. Yeah.
because of the quality. This headset I'm on right now, this is the tried, tested, true Apple earphones or
Hmm.
whatever you call them,
Yeah.
earbuds. They're great.
Yeah.
They travel well. They're very durable as a headset, but I would never use the microphone in these for the same
Right.
reason that they're just not of the quality that you want. And that quality is important because I always say without audio, there is no video. And
Right.
it's very difficult, even with all of the great AI tools out there. It's not impossible, but it's next to
Hmm.
impossible to 100% fix bad audio.
Yeah.
Bad video, you can cover it up with
B-roll.
B-roll or
That's what I
like
was. Yep.
what Eli's doing. It's like split screen. If Carl screws up, I can put myself back on the screen if I need to, or vice versa. Uh, but fixing bad audio, I've had people who've recorded it through a phone, and I go, facepalm,
Uh,
why are you doing this? This is just going to suck,
hmm.
really suck. And if this would be like walking out on stage wearing, nothing but a bathing suit or ripped blue jeans. Well, actually, maybe ripped blue jeans are kind of a thing when you walk out on stage now. But wearing
They
something that
are.
is not a reflection of who you are
Right.
professionally.
Yeah.
You wouldn't walk out bare chested on stage wearing, just shorts that you mow the lawn in the summer. So why would
Sadly,
you?
I know people who would though.
Uh, I do too, actually. But think about it, because people are judging you. That's the biggest thing is we say, oh, Eli's having a bad day. He's had a rough go this past couple of weeks. I forgive him. No, sorry. Eli, it doesn't matter what's going on in your life. People want to know that when you're showing up, you are showing up the way that you're going to show up for them when they're working with you as your, or you're working with them as a client, right? They want you to show up that way. And if you don't show up that way, same as for folks who curse a blue streak on on the show. Hey, if
Mhm.
that's your shtick, that's fine. If you get on stage and you curse a blue streak, I know Tony Robbins does or did or whatever. If that's your thing, great. If people love
Mhm.
you for that, great. But if you're selling $3 and $4 million properties and you usually walk out on stage and you're a professional realtor, but you're f-bomb this and you know what I mean. I'm not going to say it on your show. I'm going to be respectful. Then that's going to come back to you. And people say,
Yeah.
well, I don't like them because. So
You know
people judge.
mhm.
People judge.
I will agree with you on that one, and it's so funny because, um, here's the fun thing about this is, and if you've ever watched Tony, like you brought up Tony Robbins, if you've ever watched his stuff, is he does swear, but he does it very sparingly. And he only does it for impact. Like
Yes.
it's to grab your attention. It's intentional. It's part of, I mean, that's part of his NLP, right?
Yep.
It's the whole point of doing it is to change their state and
Mhm.
grab their attention with it. I remember when Gary Vaynerchuk first got popular, and he cusses like crazy, and it's so funny because I actually know Gary. He and I have met several times over the years and got to know each other. Good guy. Um, that is his personality. Like he
Yep.
actually
Yep.
tries not to. And I don't follow his stuff as much now, so he may have toned it down some now that he's little bit more mature. But back in the day when I first got to know him, I mean, he truly tried to tone it down, but he's a New York kid, right?
Yep.
Or a Jersey
Yep.
kid, and so it's natural for him. But then all of a sudden
Mhm.
people started thinking, oh, I got to do this because it's the cool thing. I gotta
Yeah.
grab their attention. It's going to make me stand out. What it does is it actually, people will see right through it. It's like, are you saying it because that's natural? Are you saying it for a specific situation? Or are
Mhm.
you just saying it because you think it sounds cool? There's
Yeah.
a difference
Yeah.
between those three.
100%. And again, if it's part of who you are, if it's part of your shtick, I know a guy by the name of Donnie Boyven with SEN who also tends to have a
Hmm.
very colorful language to him. That's okay. It works for him,
Right.
but it wouldn't work for me
Right.
personally.
Yeah.
Um, and it probably doesn't work for you. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe you do curse a blue streak,
Yeah.
but it
Not a
works
blue
for
streak.
him.
It's a little purple, right?
Yeah, well, that's what I
No,
was going to say. There's a bit of,
yeah.
yeah, let's not talk about color palettes and stuff like that. If it works, it works. If people
Hmm.
expect it, it works. But I have
Right.
seen, and so many folks who say, yeah, I'm going to start a podcast and it's going to be just like Joe Rogan's. It's going to be shock value. And I'm like, who the heck are you? Joe
Right.
Rogan's already done that and he's paved his way and
Hmm.
he's done all of these things over the last 25, 30 years that have given him I'll say the right to do that.
Yeah.
He's the guy that used to make us eat crazy stuff and scale mountains that went straight up and down. Call it fear factor, right? That's
Right.
what he did and a few
Yep.
other things too. He's already built that status, that credibility, that celebrity within him that
Hmm.
allows him to, if he, people will go to an opening of an envelope because Joe Rogan's going to be there too. But
Right.
if it were you, they're not
Nobody would
necessarily
care.
going to do that.
Right.
Right. So
Nobody's going to show up for me. It's
yeah,
okay.
I would. I'd be there. Let me know.
All
Let me know
right.
when and where.
All right. I gotta go find an envelope to open now. So and it really is, that's one of the things I think is really important for people to think about when they're starting a podcast. And you led with this, back 10, 15 minutes ago, whatever, about what's your purpose?
Mhm,
Why are
mhm.
you doing the show? And it's so
Yeah.
funny because people come in and they think about it from a standpoint of, I want to do a show and I want to get sponsors and I'm going to make all this money. And it's like, no, 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 that's down the road. Yeah, I
Sorry,
see
I'm trying not to
it.
laugh out loud too much.
Yeah.
Keep going. Keep going. You're
um
doing great.
and it's like, okay, so but what is your, who's your audience, and what's the purpose? What is it? How are you making an impact with the show? So like when I started my first show, which was, like I said, 2012, I think, it was called Driving Your Marketing, and it was where I would interview other marketing people in different arenas, and basically it was an opportunity for, number one, for me to be able to pick their brains. Is like, okay, you're into video marketing, I want you to teach me. And I bring them in as a show guest and learn that stuff. I had never even considered getting clients out of it. I wasn't looking for sponsorships or anything. Now, the fun thing about it was that I always asked my guests when I got off the show, like after we hit stop on the record, I'm like, oh, thank you so much, this was awesome. What can I do to help you out? And they were like, do you know somebody who knows Infusionsoft? And back in the day, we actually helped people with Infusionsoft behind the scenes. It wasn't even my primary public business. And so we got a ton of business out of it, but that was an afterthought. My thought was, I want to get in front of these people. I want to share their coolness and learn some great stuff from them and let other people learn from them as well. That was the point behind it. And like, even this show is very similar. Not just pick brain, but just it's all about meeting cool people. It's about cool people that I get introduced to one way or another, usually in person. But then there's an oddball that's in Canada, and I haven't had a chance to meet him in person yet. But I meet these people. We hit it off. We gel. We have a great conversation. I'm like, all right, this is somebody I want to share with the world, and that's the whole point of this show. Do I get clients out of it? Absolutely, but that's not the point of the show. It's a side effect of it.
And by the way, I've been called far better by far worse, or is it far worse by far better? I can't remember. Anyways, but to your point, yeah, I mean, it's the this is why I love having this conversation, and we could talk about this all the live long day, but we can't. But yes. It goes back to the why. Why are you doing the show? And when people say, "Well, I want to, do a few episodes and then get some sponsorships and have my podcast make money," I'm like, good luck with that. I mean, Oprah Winfrey can do it. Oprah Winfrey can hiccup in the middle of the night and make $10 million on her podcast, because of who she is and what she's done. If it's Carl Richards or Eli Delaney and they're starting out at the ground floor, it's going to take them longer to do that. So rather than, worrying about ads and sponsorships and things like that, what value are you providing? Because that's where one of the things that we're finding as we go is that it's less about the show. Eli, maybe you've discovered this as well. It's less about the show and more about what are you doing after the show? The green room conversations. People want to know where you're doing. Is there a meetup? Is there a community on Facebook or LinkedIn or somewhere where you can meet afterwards? We have a client, for example, that does early releases. Early releases for their show. Same content that goes out 2 weeks later. And by the way, they have over 1 million downloads. They got over 1 million downloads in their first 7 years, which is phenomenal.
Right.
They do early releases. 400 people tap into those early releases through Apple. They make a little bit of money from that. That's cool. But they didn't start there. They built to that point. And their whole path to monetization or building out the show is about what value can we continue to provide people through meetups, through the content that we're bringing people. That's what really helps solidify you in that space. And then at the appropriate time, you can say, okay, yeah, no, I want to provide more. I want to do more. I think if you come at it, Eli, from a place of service, just like you do all the time, heck, we get on calls and yeah, we have fun on our calls, but it's also about, hey, is there anything I can do to help you right now? Do you need to meet someone? Not as in professionally to get help. That's not what I mean. But do you need to, that's a different conversation altogether. But can I introduce you to somebody who's maybe going to help, in your business or help you with whatever, haircuts, whatever. Is there anything that I can do to help you right now? That's your approach. I know that's your approach to the show. That's your approach to business. And that's what people want. People don't care about how well you sound or all of that. They care about what you're going to do to help them. Yeah. That's what is staying and has stayed for generations.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. I think and that's really the biggest thing about it is that, you could have it as, okay, this could lead to monetization because we're in business. We got to make some money. No question about that. However, leading from a place of adding value first, leading from a place of what am I adding to the world that are going to make people want to listen, because sponsors aren't even going to look at you until you've got that. And that's always a big thing. And it's a myth that a lot of people have a problem with because they're thinking too far down the road. It's like you can have that in the back of your brain, but don't plan on starting that way because it ain't going to happen. there was one other thing I wanted to touch on a little bit. Oh, my brain just fried out on it. It was something I thought was really good that we needed to go deep in. Dang it. It just, I had it. It was on the tip of my tongue, and then I said too many words and forgot.
Uh-oh. That happens.
It happens. Um,
No, but
yeah.
I think you're absolutely right. Is that providing the value and recognizing that this journey into monetization, it ain't going to start with sponsorships. As a matter of fact, even if you get to 10,000 downloads consistently, do you know what that actually equates to in dollars and cents with sponsorships? Not much.
Not much.
We're talking Kool-Aid. We're talking pennies a glass. Like we're talking, if you made $500 a year from those sponsorships, you'd be lucky.
Yeah.
You'd be lucky. That's why the value in the content and what you're bringing your listener, and also understand that bring it back to them. Bring it back to them and ask, talk to your listener. Don't talk down to them. Don't talk to them like they're a big, massive group of an audience. Say, I'd love to hear your feedback. Eli, I'd love to hear your feedback today. You're my listener. Pretend you're my listener. I'd love to hear your feedback today. Did this episode resonate with you?
Right.
Great. Send me an email. Send us an email. Love to hear from you. Drop me a note. And by the way, there's all kinds of funky tools out there where we can, as podcast hosts, we can capture your voice. If you want to send us a voice note, there's tools that'll help us do that. We can, email is so easy. Well, of course it's easy, but there's so many ways that
as
you as a
guy,
host,
I gotta agree with that one.
Yeah, it's so easy.
Yeah.
Just don't overcomplicate it. Don't overcomplicate it.
That actually reminded me of what I was gonna.
There you go. I'm glad I did that.
Yeah. And then of course now it's starting to float away again. Oh, dang it. It did. It went away. Why is it you're doing this to me? I have not had that normally. Dang it. Now I forgot it again, which is really annoying because it was really good. Oh yeah. You had said something earlier, and I think this leads into that, is the great thing about today's wide world that we have and how technology has moved so much, and we have all these different options, is the ability to niche it down. So like, it's not just like it used to be. If you think about like old school radio, which, you and I have a little bit of background in radio. I was the behind the scenes guy. I did not want to be on the mic, but I ran the studio behind the scenes for a while, overnight, which was all sorts of fun. But nowadays things are getting so much, and like, no, we want to like micro niche it almost. It's like your show should be about a specific thing that you can add value to people for. And there's so much opportunity in that. Instead of being the Joe Rogan, right? It's get down nice and tiny and find that small group, because they're the super active ones.
We have more conversations than you could imagine about this super niching down. We had a conversation with a woman, I guess about a month ago, and it's not even her show. It's her daughter's show. Her daughter wants to spend the summer chatting with people in, the right circle at, you might have correct me on the right terminology here, but United States or American national parks, state national parks. Okay. She wants to have conversations with those individuals, not just about parks, like, tell me about your park. No, she wants to talk about ecology. She wants to talk about the water safety. She wants to talk about, it's kind of hard to get, you can't get much more niche than, hey, I want to talk to people who not only are running or are connected with, national parks of America. I want to talk about the ecology. I want to talk about the water. I want to talk about fires. I want to talk about, like, holy smokes. I mean, we're getting pretty niche, and we can get even more niche than that. So that definitely niching or niching down is extremely important, because the more you can do that, the more you can put yourself in that, what I had a speech trainer say, if you can put yourself in that category of one, there's nobody else doing what you're doing, you got it made. And you will, in theory, we'll say in theory, but you should be able to grow an audience and grow a following, because you're the only person talking about that one thing. You've niched it down so much.
I love it. That is awesome. And I agree 100% because I know people who would totally go for that podcast. Like I know people personally that be like, where is it? Where can I sign up? Right.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So time has flown by, my friend. And if it wasn't for the fact that I have a call at the top of the hour for my coaching clients, I would say let's continue talking. But we do need to wrap it up because they get a little annoyed with me if I'm late for my own call. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up. Any last final words? Any last thought you want to share real quick before we do our real wrap up here?
Yeah, I would say honestly, if you've heard our conversation today and you're thinking, yeah, I'd love to test this podcasting thing out a little bit, reach out to Eli. I'm happy to have a conversation with you too, but definitely take that first step, because I think you'll find if you're having fun listening to us, this could be you in another 6 months, 2 years down the line, having meaningful conversations and impacting the lives of the people who you are in contact with, or people you don't even know exist yet. So think about that.
Very cool. Well, thank you for a plug for me. I love that one. I gotta have people like you come on more often.
Should I plug myself here? Hey, call me now.
Well, see, I'm gonna get there.
All operators are standing by. Oh, wait a minute. Sorry,
I have two final questions for you. The last one is how can people get a hold of you? Because that's the easy one. But before that, every guest, I always ask them the same question. This is the Meet Cool People show. So what do the words meet cool people mean to you?
Oh, goodness. Connection. Meet cool people. I think that we're in a place where we're at a time in our world where we need to be, not just want to be, but we need to be in a community or connected with people who match our values, who match our way of thinking, but who also, even if they're in conflict with our way of thinking, that we can have an intelligent conversation and understand where they're coming from. And sometimes those cool people you're going to meet, they might not be 100% in alignment with your beliefs, but hey, are they a really cool person? Are they making an impact on the world? Can we agree to disagree on some things and just carry on? That's what meet cool people means to me, is the connection of actually connecting with people who are going to impact your life and maybe even make it more enriched because you've had that conversation with them.
Well said, my friend. Well said. All right. Last question. This is the easy one. How do people get a hold of you? Because I know people are going to need to find out more about what you got going on now.
Sure. Absolutely. Podcastsolutionsmadesimple.com. That's the greatest way to reach out to me. You can check out some of the things we're doing there. We've got some great things that I can't give away all of my secrets, but we've got some great things in the hopper, shall we say. Book some time to have a conversation with me. I'd love to find out more about what you're doing and who you are and how we can be of service to you.
Awesome. Love it, my friend. I appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for coming, hanging out, sharing your wisdom. And with that said, let's go ahead and wrap up. Everybody get out there. Have an amazing, amazing week. If there's anything I can do to help you out, reach out. Let me know. Take care. And that wraps up another Meet Cool People show. Now, if you like what you heard, be sure to give us a like, subscribe, or review so I can help introduce these amazing cool people to even more amazing cool people. And just remember, meeting cool people is just the beginning. You need to have a system in place to follow up with the amazing people that you meet. This is exactly what we do for our clients. Now, if you'd like to see if my team and I can help you, go to convertmoreclientsnow.com and check out the case study video to see exactly how we're helping our clients turn casual connections into cash clients for life. Again, go to convertmoreclientsnow.com and see how we can work together to turn you into a follow-up rock star.